Hey there, and welcome back to Common Knowledge, the show where I take a look at 10 common Magic the Gathering cards, tell you if they are good in the Pauper format or not. There's a bit of a thunderstorm going on outside right now, but, when it rains, it pours. And when it rains Pauper cards, we'll look at them. I don't know where I was going with that phrase. Let's see what our first card of the day is. It's Adamant Will, 1 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains indestructible until end of turn. That is pretty normal looking Magic card. I don't really want my protection spells, certainly not single target protection spells, to be 2 mana. But this is also a pump spell, and I guess you can make the argument that maybe it does enough that it is worth that. I don't mention this on the show. Maybe I should start doing it. It's full green. This is legal in every single format Scryfall shows, which I think that's cool. Not every card gets to do that. Common cards are the only ones who can, right? Because of Pauper, so that's cool. Adamant Will's fine, I guess. +2/+2 is okay. Stat boost. Indestructible is a pretty decent protection piece, but putting them together, you don't necessarily always want them together. You want to play them in different scenarios, and I don't think you really want to pay 2 mana for either one of them on their own. But to get the flexibility out of this, that's kind of just what you have to do. So I'm a little bit disappointed by it overall. I think it's still okay. We can give this thing like a 2.7 and acknowledge that it's fine, but I wouldn't say it's anything better than that. Next is Weapon Rack. For 4 mana, you get an artifact that says this counter enters with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. You can tap it to move a +1/+1 counter from this artifact onto target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. Huh. As somebody with a Marchesa the Dusk Rose. Dusk Rose? Black Rose? Oh, now I gotta know. It's my commander deck. I should really know that, right? Marchesa. It's Black Rose. Yeah, it is Black Rose. As somebody with this Marchesa deck that cares about having +1/+1 counters on creatures so they can die and come back. Obviously, that's a commander deck, not a Pauper deck, but this feels like a card I should probably consider. Huh. I don't mind it. For Pauper, though, it's not very good. This is very slow. 4 mana to put this on the table. It's not that it doesn't do anything when it comes onto the table, because you can immediately tap it, put a +1/+1 counter on one of your guys. That's okay. Kind of sucks that it's at sorcery speed, but it's also understandable why it's at sorcery speed. This could probably lead to a lot of headaches if it wasn't sorcery speed. It's fine. It's nothing all that special. I still might want a copy of it. If I wanted to like power down Marchesa a little bit, this might be a way to go. But my Marchesa deck is one that has Arcbound creatures, so the idea is that they come with their own 1/1 counters to begin with, so you can keep on looping them with Marchesa. It's a really cool deck. I love that commander deck so much. But I might still buy a copy of Weapon Rack. I mean, it's a nickel, so that seems okay to me. In Pauper, though, not very good. I'll go ahead and give this thing I'm going to give it a 1.8. I do think it's kind of a trap with just the amount of mana you have to spend initially. Tron could play it, I guess, but why? Why would Tron want it? No, I just don't like it. Rune Boggle is a fantastic name for a spell originally from Guild Pact. I kind of remember this spell. I definitely remember Guild Pact. It's an instant that says counter target spell unless its controller pays 1, and you draw a card. So it's a 4 spike with a card draw on it. 4 spike's a single blue mana. Opt is a single blue mana that can scry and then draw a card. Why is this 3 mana? 3 mana feels like a lot for this. No, I don't like this. You can get 4 spike, you can get spell pierce, you can get lots of other counter spells for a single mana. You can get counter spell for 2 mana. It's a counter spell that draws you a card. I guess when you think about a card like Refute, that's 3 mana that counters a spell, and it's a draw discard, but it's a hard counter spell that also gets you the loot. And I guess I would probably say Refute's better in that you guarantee counter the spell, because this, if you can pay 3 mana, the opponent, not probably, but might have enough mana to pay the cost. And so then you're just paying 3 mana to draw a card, and that would be really bad. That's not a very good rate for that. I don't think this is a particularly good card. I'm also gonna dip down into the ones, which is weird to dip down into the ones on a counterspell, but I don't think this is a good counterspell. I will give this a 1 point. I'm gonna give it a 1.5. I really think it's bad. Tomacool Scrapsmith is how I think you pronounce that. 2 and a red for a 2/1 human artificer. When this creature enters, you mill 3 cards. You may put an artifact card from among the cards milled this way into your hand. If you don't, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Also kind of interesting for Marchesa, but that's not why we're here. 3 mana for a 2/1, not very good. 3 mana for a 3/2, which you can do if you put the 1/1 counter on it, is also not very good. But it still mills you the 3 cards all the time, and some of those milled cards might end up being, an artifact that you can put back into your hand. It's not very good, is it? We got another card from this set which feels very similar, which is the Philagi Archaeologist. That's 2 mana, and it also mills 3 cards when it comes into play, but you can find a non-creature, non-land, and put that into your hand, and if you don't, you put a 1/1 counter on it. So it is very, very similar. There might even be a cycle for this. I don't remember all the ones from Brothers War, but just ends up being a better card. It's a better blocker, and it also gets you generally more usable cards. This being locked to just artifacts, probably not quite good enough. Philagi Archaeologist you see in a number of decks, but this one sees really no play in Pauper, and I don't really think it should. We can go ahead and give this thing I'll give it a 2.1. The mills might be useful to you, but probably not. I don't know. I don't think this is anything special. Umara Raptor is 2 and a blue. We've gotten a lot of 3 mana spells here. For a 1/1 bird ally with flying, whenever this creature or another ally you control enters, you may put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. That can be okay. We've seen a number of cards that do this kind of thing, not necessarily with allies, but 3 mana guys that will continue to put +1/+1 counters on themselves. We see Pest Mascot recently. We've seen the Machine Smith Automaton from Marvel's Superheroes that does this with artifacts. The Pest Mascot does it with life gain. This does it with allies entering play. How many good allies are there in the Pauper format? Not a ton. We've looked at the allies before, and there isn't a heck of a lot there. You also get changelings, and there are some decent changelings. In blue, not so many, but there are some decent creatures that you can get that have changeling or are able to have the ally creature type. You might get some okay value off of this, but it can only put the 1/1 counters on this guy, which isn't great. I mean, it is a flyer, so it probably is one of the guys you might want to put the 1/1 counters on. But in the meantime, it's a 3 mana 1/1 flyer, and that feels awful. And so you need to get some other allies on the board. Hang on. It is a Windrake, sorry. Right? It is just a Windrake. I'm being rude. I didn't read the card well enough. So Windrake is a 3 mana 2/2. This is a Windrake because it says whenever this creature or another ally. So this always gets to put the 1/1 counter on it first. Maybe this would be good in Marchesa. So this is a 3 mana 2/2. It's just a Windrake that becomes better than a Windrake when you play more allies. Sorry, I did not read the whenever it happens when this creature enters. So this thing should always enter with a +1/+1 counter on it, unless there's not really a Torpor Orb effect in Pauper. So I guess you don't have to worry about that. But somebody could respond to this trigger by hitting this with a Lava Dart, and then it's dead before the 1/1 counter gets on it. So it can be potentially a little bit dangerous. But it is a better Windrake, I suppose. Windrake's not very playable in Pauper either, though. I'll go with a 2. But I don't want to go any higher than that. Helionaut, we have done this card before. We did this somewhat recently. It's not particularly good, but it does filter, it flies, it does some okay things. But hey, another 3-mana spell. This is, what, our 4th 3-mana spell that we've had in a row? What's our next one? Another 3-mana spell. Crazy. Thorned Moloch is a 2/2 lizard with prowess, and this creature has first strike as long as it's attacking. I feel like we might have done this one before too, but I don't remember it specifically, so we will cover it. 3-mana 2/2 with prowess. We've seen cards kind of like this before. They're okay. You know kind of how I feel about cards that are above 2 mana that have prowess. I just feel like you've probably spent enough of your cards by turn 3 that you don't necessarily have cards ready to go to trigger the prowess on subsequent turns. I do like the first strike as long as it's attacking. That's pretty cool. Wizards has started to do this more on first strike is a really tough ability to deal with. There's a whole video that Gavin Verhey did on his Good Morning Magic YouTube channel, where he talks about why Wizards has shifted away from having first strike on common cards, because it does really slow down the game to have first strike guys who are blocking. And so when you block with first strike, it discourages people from attacking, which just leads to very stalled boards, which leads to longer games, which leads to nobody winning and nobody having fun. So the way they've combated that is by this line of text. The creature has first strike as long as it's your turn, or as long as it's attacking in the way that this one does. So it's encouraging you to attack, because you won't get that benefit on your turn or on your opponent's turn. So you don't get the benefit while you're blocking, but it is an incentive to keep attacking with this guy. And this does end up being a pretty exciting attacker once it's on the table. It's a prowess guy that has first strike when it attacks. Fantastic. Because now I can play non-creature spells to pump up my creature's power and toughness, so it is ready to do even more damage with the first strike, that I can get this guy strong enough to take out whatever my opponent tries to block with, and this thing lives because it has first strike. That is pretty cool. Problem is, it costs 3 mana. That really is just the only real problem with this card, and it's a big enough problem that I don't like it. This should be like at the top end of your curve in Pauper, and I don't think this is a good enough top end threat, especially in red. So that just doesn't work for me. I will give this I'm still going to give it a 3. There's still cool, exciting stuff about it, but I don't think it's good enough. Shattered Landscape, we have broken the streak of 3-mana cards. This is a land. We've done the landscapes before. Have we done the landscapes? I know I've talked about them. Let's say we haven't done the landscapes, because that's really exciting. Shattered Landscape is a land. It taps for colorless, and it also taps to say, sacrifice this land, search your library for a basic mountain, plains, or swamp card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And it also cycles for Mardu mana, which is red, white, and black, which means you discard this card, and you get to draw a card. These landscapes rule. These are so good. We did the Esper Panorama a handful of episodes ago, maybe a couple episodes ago, and we talked about how those panoramas kind of just got dumpstered by these cards from Modern Horizons 3, and they're just so good. There's an entire cycle of these that go for every 3-color combination. They were all from Modern Horizons 3, and they're incredible. They all see some pretty decent play in Commander, and in Pauper, and probably in some other formats as well that I don't play. I mean, maybe they show up in Modern. I don't know. But these are really good fetches. They come in untapped and can just be mana sources, colorless mana sources, which isn't great, but it's better than always coming into play tapped like many lands that kind of fixed do. These are something that you can sacrifice in the same way that you can with Evolving Wilds or Terramorphic Expanse. Now it only finds 3 different kinds of basics instead of any basic. But if you're playing a 3-color deck or a 2-color deck, you're getting the right colors that you need, and that's all that matters. And then they do have this benefit of still being able to be cycled later in the game if you really don't need a land, and you're able to go grab another card instead. They just are really incredible lands that work at a multitude of areas, coming down and being a mana source the turn it comes in, being a fetch land that color fixes you for what you need, or later in the game being a drawn card for you. Incredible lands. They're not perfect. We have some better lands in the format. We have things that tap for multiple colors. We have things that are artifact lands, but when it comes to fetch lands, these are really hard to beat. These are probably the best fetch lands in the format, and that's something. It's a little tougher when you have the land cyclers that the creature land cycle. Well, not all creatures, but the Lord of the Rings land cyclers that do forest cycling or island cycling. Those cards don't negate these cards, but they do make these cards a little less useful because those can also fix, but they are also big creatures or big spells when you need them late in the game. These are still really good, though. You'll see these in decks, even just as a couple copies, even maybe just one copy in some decks, just as a potential way of fixing. They're really good. I'm going to give them a 8.7. The best cards we'll see today, by far, unless we hit on. God, what's like another card that we haven't done that would be super huge? We've seen Brainstorm, we've seen Lightning Bolt. Cast Down probably would get really high, even though it's a little less today based on all the legendary creatures. But there's still some big ones that we haven't seen quite yet. Tolarian Terror would probably get a 9+. So we'll see. Spontaneous Mutation is a single blue mana for an enchantment aura that has flash and enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets -X/-0, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. Kind of interesting, Mono Blue Terror puts a lot of cards in their graveyard, but all this does is give a power subtraction to a creature, so it's not like it doesn't stop the creature from blocking. It's not amazing. The flash speed is kind of cool, but there's also so much graveyard hate in the format. That's the real problem. There's enough graveyard hate that this can easily go from a -10, -0 to nothing. They just exile your graveyard and you're back to 0. And this is just an enchantment that literally does nothing until you put something else in your graveyard. So from that aspect, I don't think this is particularly good. We just have better blue removal options or auras than a Spontaneous Mutation. So I think we can give this something like a 2.3. If there wasn't so much graveyard hate in the format, maybe this could be interesting, but there just is. There's so many graveyard based decks in Pauper that people are just playing those. Dismal Backwater is a gain land. We've definitely talked about the gain lands before. It's a land that enters tapped. When it enters, you gain a life, and it makes 2 colors of mana. We have a full cycle of all the 2 colors. These are good. Not good enough, really, to see Pauper play unless you are in some kind of life gain theme. Occasionally, these will see some play, but they're not amazing. We've talked about them before. I won't rate them. I won't count them. But they're good. Cyclopean Mummy we have definitely done before. It's not good, but I like the art. I like an old Legends card, but we won't do this one either. We're seeing a lot of cards we've seen. Lab Rats is a new one, though. Lab Rats is a single black mana for a sorcery with buyback 4. You can pay an additional 4 mana as you cast this spell. If you do, you put it back into your hand as it resolves. And this spell says to create a 1/1 black rat creature token. So for 1 mana, you can make a 1/1 creature. Or for 5 mana, you can make a 1/1 creature. But you get to keep the spell. So you can potentially play it turn over turn over turn. Making 1/1s is not awesome. we can do better than that. But with buyback, that is kind of interesting. We have a white card that does something like this too, right? But I think it's cheaper, and that sometimes gets played in some control decks where you can buy it back and keep on playing it. I don't think this is good enough. 4 mana for the buyback is really expensive. Paying 5 mana for a 1/1 token, yeah, that's just not going to fly. I don't think it's going to fly in really any format. It is still, in a way, infinite 1/1s. But the way to get there is pretty muddled. I'll go for a 2, I think. Galacat. Galacat? Yeah, I'm going to go with Galacat. Is 2 and a white. Hey, a 3-mana card to end the day? Well, at least our last official card of the day. It's a 1/3 cat with flying and vigilance, and as long as you control 2 or more artifacts, this creature gets +2/+0. So potentially a 3-mana 3/3 flying vigilance. That's okay, I guess. But it's not awesome. Ardent Recruit. Ardent Recruit's a single mana for a 1/1, and if you control 3 or more artifacts, it gets +2/+2. So this is potentially a 1-mana 3/3. But you need 3 artifacts. This can be a 3-mana 3/3 flying vigilance, but you need 2 artifacts. The problem is Ardent Recruit, you can get down on turn 1, and then you can activate it later, and it's like a 1-mana 3/3. 1-mana 3/3s are really good. That's way above rate. A 3-mana 3/3 flying vigilance, but sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's just the 1/3 flying vigilance. You're going to feel really bad until you have the artifacts to make that work. And even when you do have the artifacts to make that work, it's just slightly above rate at that point with the flying and the other keyword, but mostly the flying. It's fine. I don't think it's anything more than fine, though. We can go with something like a 2.5. I think this is a pretty normal Magic card. Let's do a bonus card before we call it a day. We will end with Roar of the Crowd. 3 and a red for a sorcery. Choose a creature type. Roar of the Crowd deals damage to any target equal to the number of permanents you control of the chosen type. Oof, that's pretty narrow, right? Sorcery speed, 4 whole mana, and you have to be playing some kind of typal deck and have a lot of those on the board. So it probably has to be something a type that is low to the ground, as in like elves or goblins. I guess you're in red, so goblins make some sense. Yeah, you can help to enable this with changelings, but man, 4 mana already kind of sucks. Sorcery speed kind of sucks, and then limiting you even further by requiring you to have a very specific kind of deck. And it is to any target, so that's something. I guess if you can make a ton of, if you go back and you make a ton of rats with lab rats, you can use this to just burn your opponent out automatically. But that requires a ton of mana to do, and all its sorcery speed. So I don't like this. I think this is kind of bad. Really good art, but card itself is pretty bad. I will give this a. I think I'm going to give it a 1.9. I'm going to give it kind of that shame of the 1, and it's really just because I think it's a real trap with the mana cost, with the speed, and with the effect. They're all kind of bad and narrow. So sorry to end on a downer, but that's just how it is. Hopefully next time we will have some better cards. Till then.